At 6:15 a.m., Michigan Avenue is still asleep, shrouded in autumn fog. The first rays of sunlight barely touch the glass facades, but Starbucks is already bustling with activity. Julia North puts on her green apron with the refined grace of someone who has done it hundreds of times before. Her movements are fluid, like choreography, as she fastens her name tag and tucks a stray chestnut strand behind her ear. "Good morning, Chicago," she whispers to her reflection in the mirror of the staff room, rehearsing a smile, sincere but not too personal. Professional. She serves hundreds of customers every day, and each one should feel special, even if it requires virtuoso acting. At 26, Julia is already considered a veteran of the coffee business. 4 years at this Starbucks have made her a local celebrity. Her ability to create intricate patterns on milk foam has become an art form, to which she has dedicated her Instagram account with 32,000 followers. "Julie, you're early today." Marco, the shift manager, comes out of the back room with a tablet in his hands. "I was just looking at the sales charts for the week. Your specialty drinks are boosting our revenue by 20%. Julia smiles, working through her usual embarrassment. She knows her worth, but she's smart enough not to show it openly. "I'm just doing my job, Marco. By the way, I've come up with a new seasonal latte with pumpkin and cardamom. Can we add it to the menu today? You know the company rules," he sighs. "But if it's our little secret offer for select customers, then why not?" At 7 in the morning, the coffee shop door opens to its first customers. Julia's routine becomes a rhythmic dance between the coffee machine, the cash register, and the customers. "Double espresso with caramel syrup for Michael," she announces, handing a cup to a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. "Julia, you save me every morning," he says, leaving a generous tip and taking his coffee. "My wife says I only come here for your smile." "Tell her she's married to a man with excellent taste," Julia replies. This game of flirtation is part of her job, a tool for creating loyal customers. By 9 o'clock, the coffee shop is filled with students with laptops and office workers with cell phones. Julia knows the names of almost all the regulars, remembers their orders and details of their lives that they have mentioned in brief conversations. "Caramel macchiato for Alex." She hands a tall glass to the chef from the restaurant across the street. Alex Rivera lingers on her hands, a new tattoo of a coffee bean on her left wrist. "Beautiful." He nods at the design. "Another symbol of your dedication to art?" "More of a reminder of my goals." Julia discreetly hides her hand under the counter. "How's your restaurant? Still dreaming of a Michelin star?" "Getting closer every day." His voice sounds tense. "What about you? Still saving up for your own coffee shop?" "In 2 years," Julia replies confidently. "North Brew will open right here on Michigan Avenue." Alex's eyes darken for a moment, but he quickly masks it with a polite smile. "Bold plans. I hope you won't forget your old friends when you become a competitor." As he leaves, Jamie Hawkins, who works at the cash register, leans over to Julia. "He's so obviously in love with you. It's embarrassing." "Don't be silly." Julia waves her hand dismissively. "We're just colleagues who work next door to each other." "Colleagues don't look like they want to eat you along with that macchiato." Jamie smirks. "By the way, there's an inspection from regional headquarters scheduled for today. Will you help me with the presentation of the new standards?" There is a note of dependence in Jamie's voice that Julia is used to ignoring. Their friendship has lasted 3 years, but lately it has turned into a one-sided relationship, with Jamie increasingly relying on Julia's charisma and professionalism. "Of course I'll help," Julia nods, making a note on her phone. "But remember, I have a photo shoot for Instagram at 5. I need to prepare new content." Jamie sighs, but says nothing. Her silence speaks louder than words. During her lunch break, Julia slips away to a quiet corner of the coffee shop with her phone. Her Instagram page is filled with perfect shots, latte art in the form of leaves, hearts, and intricate geometric patterns, selfies with celebrities stopping by for coffee, Atmospheric photos of the coffee shop at dawn. Under each photo are hundreds of comments from fans of her talent. The next step is a YouTube channel with masterclasses, she types in her notes. Then a collaboration with local coffee brands. By the end of the year, 10,000 new subscribers. Her finger hovers over a message that came a few minutes ago from an anonymous user. Your popularity is built on lies. You don't deserve what you have. Julia frowns and blocks the account. This is the third such message in a week. Probably some envious person or internet troll. She is used to the negativity that accompanies growing fame. The coffee shop door opens and a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard enters. Christopher Grant, owner of Artisan Coffee, a small independent coffee shop 3 blocks away. His presence makes Julia tense up. Julia. He nods as he approaches the counter. Americano, no sugar. Christopher, she begins to prepare the order. Decided to check out the competition? More like studying the enemy, he says with bitter irony in his voice. Your latest post criticizing overpriced independent coffee shops was pretty accurate. Julia shrugs, feeling no guilt. I just expressed my opinion. Freedom of speech. My business lost customers after your post. He takes the glass, leaving no tip. But I'm sure you didn't think about that when you wrote your charming comment. Survival of the fittest. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. It's business, nothing personal. Of course, nothing personal. His gaze slides across the coffee shop. By the way, I heard about your plans to open your own place. I wonder how you're going to finance this venture on a barista's salary. Or do you have special investors? Julia feels irritation building inside her, but she keeps her professional smile. Everyone has their secrets to success, don't they? When Christopher leaves, Marco approaches her. What did he want? The same as always, Julia shrugs. To remind me that I'm hot on his heels. The day is coming to an end. The crowd is thinning, and it's getting dark outside. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Julia is getting ready to hand over her shift when she receives a message from Brian, her photographer. Can't make it today. Urgent order. Shall we reschedule the photo shoot? This disrupts all her plans. New content is due tomorrow, and without fresh photos, her publication schedule will be disrupted. Julia taps her nails on the counter in irritation. Problems in social media paradise? Jamie asks, wiping down the coffee machine. The photographer canceled the appointment. Julia bites her lip. I need new photos for tomorrow's post. I could help, Jamie offers. I have a camera. Julia looks at her friend appraisingly. Jamie is a good person, but her aesthetic is far from professional. Thanks, but I'd rather skip the post, she replies. Quality is more important than regularity. Jamie's face twists with hurt for a second, but she quickly masks it with a smile. Of course, you're right. Always right. Julia detects a hint of sarcasm in this phrase, but decides to ignore it. She has no time for other people's resentment. She has an empire to build. As she leaves the coffee shop, the night air of Chicago greets her with a cool breeze from Lake Michigan. Julia turns and looks at the glowing Starbucks sign. One day, her own logo will be displayed here. And no one, not the haters on the internet, not her competitors, not her jealous friends, will stop her from achieving her goal. Her phone vibrates with a new message. An unknown number appears on the screen with the text. I know your secret. Soon, everyone will know. Julia freezes for a moment, then decisively deletes the message. She has no secrets, only plans that she does not intend to reveal prematurely. Julia North's apartment is 8 blocks from the coffee shop, on the 23rd floor of a modern residential complex. For someone with a barista's salary, it's too luxurious, but Julia has long since learned to overcome financial obstacles. She takes off her work shoes and massages her tired feet. Her evening ritual is always the same: a shower, a glass of red wine, and checking her social media stats. Perfectly composed photos of coffee and a smiling Julia garner hundreds of likes and comments. She scrolls through her screen, noting with satisfaction the growth in audience engagement. Her phone vibrates with an incoming message. Julia grimaces when she sees the sender's name, Alex. This is the 5th message of the evening. Is dinner still on? I made something special. Julia replies after a calculated 7 minutes. Sorry, I'm swamped with content work. Next time? She had no intention of going. Alex Rivera was helpful when he helped launch her first publications on Chicago's coffee culture, but now his obvious infatuation is becoming burdensome. However, she can't completely break off the relationship. He's a chef with a growing reputation, and such connections are valuable for her plans. Julia takes a sip of wine and opens the file with the business plan for her future coffee shop. The numbers stubbornly don't add up. Even with her savings and a possible loan, she is almost $120,000 short of the startup capital she needs. Her gaze moves to the bank app icon, where a secret account is hidden, replenished by a source that no one knows about. A new message, this time from Christopher Grant. Your last post crossed the line. I lost 3 corporate clients. We need to talk. Julia smiles. Yesterday, she published an investigation into the quality of coffee in Chicago's independent coffee shops. Without making any direct accusations, but with enough hints, Christopher's Artisan Coffee came across in the publication as an overrated establishment with a mediocre product. It's just my opinion, backed up by facts. Everything is within the law, she replies. Her relationship with Christopher has always been tense. At first, he offered her a manager position at his coffee shop with a salary twice as high as at Starbucks. When she refused, his friendliness turned into cold rivalry. And after Julia shared her plans to open her own establishment in the same neighborhood where Artisan Coffee operates, Christopher began to perceive her as a direct threat. Julia takes another sip of wine, enjoying the situation. It's just common sense to undermine a competitor's reputation a little before opening your own business. Nothing personal. The doorbell catches her off guard. Jamie stands on the threshold, her face pale and her eyes swollen from crying. Sorry for barging in. Jamie's voice trembles. I have no one else to turn to. Julia reluctantly lets her colleague in, mentally saying goodbye to a quiet evening. What happened? I was called into the regional manager's office, Jamie says, sinking onto the sofa. After today's audit, they say they noticed a shortage in my shifts. They're hinting at possible theft. Julia freezes with a glass in her hand. A week ago, she noticed Jamie make a mistake in calculating the daily takings, but she didn't say anything. What's more, in recent days, she has made several confusing entries in the sales log when working with Jamie. This is some kind of misunderstanding, Julia says cautiously. I'm sure everything will be cleared up. Could you talk to them? Hope flashes in Jamie's eyes. Everyone respects you. They'll listen to your opinion. Julia hesitates. Taking Jamie's side means risking her impeccable reputation, but an outright refusal could turn a colleague into an enemy. Of course, I'll talk to management, she promises with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. But let's figure out what happened first. Maybe you missed something in the reports? I checked everything twice, Jamie exclaims. Someone is setting me up. Or you really are stealing, Julia thinks, but says aloud, no one is setting you up. Most likely, it's just a system error. Jamie wipes away her tears. I can't lose this job, Julie. Without references, no one will hire me. Everything will be fine, Julia hugs her friend, mentally calculating the options. If Jamie gets fired, the senior barista position will become available. That means a raise and more influence in the coffee shop. On the other hand, she could use the situation to make Jamie grateful and more obedient. Thank you, Jamie sobs. You're a true friend. Julia smiles, patting Jamie on the back, but her thoughts are far away. Will she be able to take advantage of this situation without getting her hands dirty? After Jamie leaves, Julia returns to working on her business plan. Her phone vibrates again. A new message from an anonymous sender. Jamie isn't the only one you're betraying. I know about the money, about Michael, about everything. The blood drains from Julia's face. Michael is a name no one should associate with her. Her fingers tremble as she tries to block the number, but the message has already disappeared, and with it, the sender's contact information. The next morning, Julia arrives at the coffee shop earlier than usual. She needs to review the sales log before the manager arrives, but she's not the only one who decided to start the day early. Alex Rivera is standing at the service entrance, his face tense. "We need to talk," he says without greeting her. "I'm late, Alex." Julia tries to get past him. 5 minutes. His voice sounds harsher than usual. "I'm not leaving until we talk." They move away to an empty service alley. "I saw you yesterday," Alex begins, "at Lakeshore Restaurant, with Michael Donnelly." Julia feels a chill run down her spine. Michael Donnelly is an investor she has been secretly meeting with to discuss financing for her coffee shop. He is a man with a questionable reputation and connections in the municipality. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "Don't lie to me." Alex raises his voice. "You had lunch with a man suspected of money laundering. What are you doing with him? Are you following me?" Julia goes on the offensive. "This is crossing the line, Alex. I happened to be there." He takes a step back. "And I'm worried about you. Donnelly is a dangerous man." "My personal life is none of your business," Julia snaps. "We're not dating. You're nobody to me. Remember that." The pain in Alex's eyes gives her a momentary satisfaction, but she quickly suppresses the emotion. She can't lose such a useful contact. "I'm sorry," Julia softens her tone. "I didn't mean to be rude. I've just been under a lot of stress lately." "I want to help." Alex looks at her with concern. "If you're having financial problems..." "I'm fine," Julia interrupts him, "and I have to open the coffee shop." Once inside, she immediately goes to the sales journal. She looks through the records for the last 2 weeks and carefully makes a few corrections. Nothing obvious, just numbers that will give the impression that Jamie is confused in her calculations, not stealing. It's insurance in case her friend decides to accuse her of inaction. The coffee shop gradually fills with customers. Julia works automatically, her thoughts occupied with anonymous messages. Who could know about Michael Donnelly? Is she really being followed? At 11 o'clock, Christopher Grant appears. Instead of his usual Americano, he asks for a conversation. 5 minutes. Julia reluctantly agrees, nodding to her colleague to replace her. They move to a table in the back. "I lost the contract with the office center on Monroe," Christopher begins without preamble. 40 cups of coffee a day. "You know what's interesting? The manager mentioned your informative post as the reason for changing suppliers." "The market is competitive," Julia shrugs. "This isn't competition." Christopher leans closer. "This is slander. You lied about the quality of my coffee." "I expressed my subjective opinion. Based on fabricated facts." His eyes narrow. "I checked. You've never taken a coffee tasting masterclass. You don't have any certificates that give you the right to evaluate the quality of beans. My opinion is enough for my subscribers. And the court will have enough evidence of intentional damage to reputation," Christopher retorts. "I've studied the law, Julia. What you're doing could qualify as unfair competition." She feels her pulse quicken, but keeps a straight face. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you." Christopher stands up. "Delete the post and publish a retraction, or we'll see you in court." When he leaves, Julia notices that her hands are shaking slightly. A lawsuit could ruin her plans and scare off potential investors, including Michael Donnelly. At the end of her shift, Jamie approaches her with her phone in her hands. "Have you seen this?" Julia's Instagram profile is open on the screen. Under her latest post are dozens of comments accusing her of fraud and plagiarism of latte art designs. Someone has posted screenshots comparing her work to posts by a Japanese barista from 2 years ago. "What the hell is this?" Julia snatches the phone. "This is fake." It looks very similar, Jamie says uncertainly. These patterns are really identical. Julia feels the color drain from her face. She had indeed adapted several designs found on a little-known Japanese blog, hoping no one would notice. It's a coincidence, she insists. The basic latte art patterns are universal. Sure, Jamie returns the phone, but her eyes betray her doubt. By the way, I spoke to the regional manager. Did you mention my situation? Not yet. Julia looks away. But I'll definitely talk to him tomorrow. Understood. Jamie turns away. Don't worry. I'll take care of it myself. There is disappointment in her tone and something else, as if she has suddenly seen Julia in a new light. In the evening, closing the coffee shop, Julia reviews her posts and deletes the most obvious borrowings. A plagiarism scandal could destroy everything she has achieved. As she leaves the coffee shop, she notices a figure on the opposite side of the street. The person stands motionless, watching her. As Julia stares into the darkness, the figure turns and walks away. Her phone rings. An unknown number. Hello? She answers hesitantly. Julia North? A male voice sounds official. This is Detective Morales from the Chicago Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. I need to ask you a few questions about your acquaintance with Michael Donnelly. Julia feels the ground slipping away beneath her feet. Everything she has built begins to crumble. 3 hours of questioning at the police station have exhausted Julia. Detective Morales asked the same questions over and over, phrasing them differently, hoping to catch her in contradictions. How long has she known Michael Donnelly? What was the nature of their relationship? Did she know about his business? About the origin of his funds? Had they entered into any financial agreements? Julia answered cautiously, acknowledging their acquaintance, but denying any business connection. Donnelly was just a regular customer at the coffee shop, nothing more. She had no idea about his alleged illegal activities. Did he leave this for you? The detective held up the envelope. We found it in Mr. Donnelly's pocket yesterday when we arrested him. It has your name on it. Julia kept a straight face, though inside she was reeling. Last week, Donnelly had indeed given her an envelope containing $10,000, the down payment for her coffee shop. No, maybe he was planning to give me some documents, but I didn't receive anything. By the time the detective finally let her go, with a warning to remain available for further questioning, it was well past midnight. In the morning, Julia wakes up to the sound of a notification. An unfamiliar number. Lying to the police is a federal crime. One word to Detective Morales, and you'll join Donnelly behind bars. Julia's hands are shaking so badly that she drops her phone. Someone knows about her lie. Someone is watching her every move. Everyone at the coffee shop is looking at her differently. Or is it just her imagination? Marco calls her into the back room. The detective was here with questions about you. He frowns. What's going on, Julia? It's a misunderstanding. She forces a smile. I just happen to know someone who's under investigation. I hope that's the case. Marco looks concerned. We don't need any trouble with the police. The corporation is very sensitive to reputational risks. Julia feels a shiver inside. She could lose her job. And without a job, there is no stable income. Without income, there is no credit. Without credit, there is no coffee shop. Her whole life could collapse because of one mistake, trusting the wrong person. Behind the counter, Jamie meets her with a cold stare. The regional manager contacted me, she says quietly. He said he did an additional check and found discrepancies in the records. Strangely, all the errors occurred during the shifts when we worked together. Julia swallows the lump in her throat. What a coincidence. Indeed, Jamie turns away, especially considering that some of the records were altered very recently, in handwriting similar to yours. Are you accusing me? Julia goes on the offensive. After everything I've done for you? What have you done, Julia? Jamie meets her gaze. You promised to help, but you didn't. You always do this. You give false hope, and then you disappear when you're really needed. I was at the police station all night. Julia feels tears welling up. I have my own problems. Of course, Jamie nods. Your problems are always more important than other people's. While serving customers, Julia notices that the number of comments about plagiarism under her posts continues to grow. Someone even created the hashtag #FakeBarista, which is gaining popularity. Her hard-earned reputation is falling apart before her eyes. During her lunch break, she sits alone, scrolling through her messages. Through the coffee shop's glass window, she sees Alex Rivera talking to Christopher Grant across the street. They are gesturing animatedly and periodically glancing toward Starbucks. A chill runs down Julia's spine. Are they ganging up on her? What could Alex have told Christopher? Does he know more about Donnelly than he's let on? When Alex enters the coffee shop an hour later, Julia pointedly asks a colleague to serve him. We need to talk, Alex says quietly, approaching the corner of the counter. I have nothing to say to you, Julia snaps. I saw you leaving the police station yesterday, he says, his voice barely audible. They asked about Donnelly, didn't they? Julia freezes. Have you been following me? I was worried. Alex looks genuinely concerned. When you didn't respond to my messages, I drove by your house. I saw a police car. That's called stalking, Alex. Julia feels a wave of fear and anger rising inside her. I can get a restraining order. Julia, listen. Alex lowers his voice even more. Donnelly is dangerous. If you're involved with him, you need help. The only thing I need is for you to leave me alone. She turns away. I spoke to Christopher today, Alex continues. He's serious about going to court, but I can help smooth things over. He'll listen to me. Julia turns abruptly. What did you tell him about me? Nothing. Alex takes a step back, surprised by her reaction. I was trying to calm him down. Don't interfere in my life, Julia practically hisses. I'll solve my own problems. The rest of the day passes in a fog. Julia notices that there are fewer visitors than usual. Word spreads quickly online, and the plagiarism scandal has clearly affected her popularity. Even her regular customers look at her with curiosity, as if trying to see cracks in her professional facade. In the evening, a message arrives from Michael Donnelly, from an unknown number, clearly not his personal one. I didn't talk about you. Make sure you keep quiet, too. The money was just a gift between friends. No agreements. Julia deletes the message with trembling fingers. Donnelly somehow contacted her from custody. That can only mean one thing. He has connections within the system, and those connections could be dangerous for her if she makes a wrong move. As her shift comes to an end, Marco asks her to stay. I got a call from headquarters, he says, his face serious. They're concerned about the plagiarism scandal. Your Instagram profile contains references to Starbucks, and the company doesn't want to be associated with such allegations. It's not true, Julia says, feeling the ground finally slipping away from under her feet. They're just internet trolls. Nevertheless, you need to remove any mention of the company from your profile, Marco sighs. And management wants you to temporarily step away from working with the coffee shop's social media. It's a blow to the gut. Her promotion on social media was a key element in building her personal brand. For how long? Until the situation is clarified, Marco replies evasively. And one more thing. We reviewed the records for the last month. It turns out that Jamie is not to blame for the shortage. There really were changes made retroactively. Julia remains silent, trying not to show her emotions. The cameras recorded that you were in the back room after closing time on those days, Marco continues. Do you have an explanation? I was checking the records. Julia feverishly searches for an excuse. I noticed some discrepancies and corrected them. Without shifting the blame onto a colleague? Marco looks skeptical. I didn't think it would look that way. Julia lowers her eyes. I was just correcting the numbers. Julia, Marco sighs, I appreciate your talents. You're an excellent barista and you attract customers. But if it turns out that you deliberately framed your colleague, that's a serious offense. I would never. Julia puts all her acting skills into her voice. Jamie is my friend. Marco nods, but his gaze betrays his doubt. Okay, but now you understand why we have to be careful about your involvement in managing the coffee shop until this is resolved? Leaving Marco's office, Julia notices Jamie packing her things. Her gaze reveals a mixture of hurt and disappointment. Your little show in Marco's office didn't convince anyone, she says quietly. He showed me the security camera footage. I saw you deliberately editing documents during my shift. Julia feels her protective armor cracking. Jamie, I can explain. No, don't. Jamie raises her hand. I thought we were friends. For 4 years, I covered for you, helped you, supported you, and you betrayed me so easily. I didn't betray you. Julia tries to compose herself. I just panicked when the talk about the shortage started. I was afraid I would come under suspicion. So you decided to frame me? Jamie smiles bitterly. How convenient. When Jamie leaves, Julia is left alone in the empty coffee shop. For the first time in a long time, the mask of perfection she had carefully constructed has completely crumbled. She is no longer an Instagram celebrity, the future owner of a trendy coffee shop, or the darling of her customers. She is just a person whose manipulations and lies have finally caught up with her. Julia locks herself in the bathroom and lets the tears flow. Her phone vibrates. A new message from an unknown number. All your sins are coming to the surface, like black foam on spoiled coffee. With trembling hands, Julia dials the number of the only person she can trust right now, her older sister, Rebecca. I'm scared, Becky, she sobs when her sister answers. Someone is stalking me, sending me messages, knows about my meetings with Donnelly. Donnelly? That investor with a questionable reputation? Rebecca's voice tightens. Jules, you promised to stay away from him. I needed money for the coffee shop. Julia wipes away her tears. The bank refused to give me a loan, and regular investors want too big a share. And now Donnelly's been arrested. Rebecca sighs. Do you even understand what you've gotten yourself into? Money laundering is a federal crime. I didn't know, Julia exclaims. He just offered to help. No interest, no contract. Of course there was no contract, Rebecca says bitterly. Because deals like that are illegal, Jules. What should I do? Julia slides down the wall to the floor. Someone knows everything. They're blackmailing me, threatening me. You have to go to the police, Rebecca says firmly. Tell them the whole truth. Maybe they'll offer you a deal if you help them with the Donnelly case. I can't, Julia panics. They think I'm involved. What if they arrest me? Then at least return the money, Rebecca advises. Get rid of it before it gets worse. After the call, Julia returns to the coffee shop. It's already dark outside, and the empty tables, lit by dim light, look ominous. She needs to close the shop, but the thought of returning to an empty apartment where every shadow could hide a threat terrifies her. The sound of the door opening makes her jump. Christopher Grant is standing in the doorway. We're closed, Julia's voice trembles. I know. Christopher enters and closes the door behind him. We need to talk. Alone. Julia retreats behind the counter, fumbling for her phone in her pocket. About what? About how you're ruining my business. Christopher moves closer. His usually restrained tone has been replaced by barely controlled rage. This morning I lost my last big contract. Do you know how many years I've been building artisan coffee? How much effort? I don't understand what you're talking about. Julia tries to remain calm. If customers are leaving you, maybe the problem is the quality of your services. Don't play games with me. Christopher leans over the counter. You deliberately spread lies about my coffee shop. And now you refuse to admit it, even when I'm facing closure. It's business. Julia tries to make her voice sound firm. Nothing personal. It's very personal to me. Christopher taps his finger on the counter. Do you realize I've lost everything? My coffee shop, my dream? Because of your jealousy and lies? I didn't lie, Julia insists. I expressed an opinion. An opinion? Christopher laughs bitterly. You deliberately smeared my establishment to eliminate competition for your future coffee shop. You manipulated people and used your popularity on the internet. That's called marketing, Julia says, feeling her fear turn to anger. It's not my fault you don't know how to promote your business. You don't even understand what you've done, Christopher shakes his head. Or maybe you don't care. You destroyed what I've been building for 10 years on a whim. Get out, Julia points to the door, or I'll call the police. The police? Christopher smirks. Aren't they interested in you right now? Something to do with Michael Donnelly, if I heard correctly? Julia freezes. How do you know? Chicago is a small town for certain circles. Christopher backs away. You're playing with fire, Julia, and one day you'll get burned more than you can imagine. When he leaves, Julia locks the door with trembling hands and lowers the blinds. She is alone in the coffee shop, but she feels someone's gaze on her. She paranoidly checks every corner, checks the back room, the toilet. Her phone vibrates. Another message. Look in the fridge. An icy fear grips Julia. The message just arrived. Someone knows she's in the coffee shop right now, alone. Slowly, her heart pounding, she walks over to the refrigerator and opens the door. Inside, on the top shelf, is an envelope with her name on it. With trembling fingers, she opens it. Inside are printouts of all the changes she made to the work records to frame Jamie. A photo of her meeting with Donnelly. Screenshots of the Japanese blog where she borrowed designs for latte art. And a note. Tomorrow it will all end. I will reveal your true nature. Be prepared. Julia sinks to the floor, clutching the envelope to her chest. She is trapped by her own deceptions, and an unknown pursuer is ready to destroy her world. Tomorrow. What will happen tomorrow? A shadow flits past the coffee shop window. Someone is standing under a streetlight, watching the building. When Julia peers into the darkness, the figure disappears like a ghost. The morning on Michigan Avenue begins with the flashing lights of police cars. Yellow tape marked "Crime Scene" surrounds the entrance to Starbucks, blocking access to shocked passers-by and curious journalists. Marco Diaz, the coffee shop manager, shivers in the cold morning air as he answers questions from a police officer. He was the one who discovered Julia North's body at 5:30 a.m. when he came to open the shop. The image of what he saw in the back room is now burned into his memory, the scene too horrific to describe in words. Detective Sarah Mitchell arrives at the scene at 6:15 a.m. The 41-year-old woman with her chestnut hair pulled back in a tight bun and piercing gray eyes steps out of an unremarkable sedan. 12 years in the homicide division have made her immune to most horrors, but today's crime will test even her hardened psyche. She pulls on shoe covers, gloves, and a protective jumpsuit before entering. The coroner is already at work, bent over the body. What do we have? Mitchell's voice is even, professional. Julia North, 26 years old, the coroner replies. Estimated time of death between midnight and 3 a.m. Brutal murder. The young woman's body lies on her back, arms outstretched. Her torso is literally torn in half, from her solar plexus to her lower abdomen, by a deep, gaping wound. The edges are uneven, as if made in a frenzy. Her face is frozen in an expression of horror. But the most disturbing element is what is placed inside the wound, a folded piece of paper, soaked in blood, but still legible. The murder weapon? Mitchell asks, looking away. Presumably a meat cleaver with a serrated blade, the coroner points to the characteristic marks. Not found. The killer probably took it. Sarah makes a mental note to check the trash cans and storm drains in the area. She examines the crime scene. There are minimal signs of a struggle, suggesting either a sudden attack or that the victim knew the assailant. Mitchell approaches the note that the technicians have already removed from the wound and placed in a plastic evidence bag. Through the transparent material, the handwritten words can be made out. Fake, liar, thief. Now everyone knows your true nature. Sarah comes out of the back room and approaches Marco, who is sitting on the edge of a police car, wrapped in a blanket. "Detective Mitchell, homicide," she introduces herself. "Please tell me what happened." Marco describes how he came to open the coffee shop. The door was locked, the alarm was on, no signs of forced entry. When he went to the back room, he found Julia's body. "When was the last time you saw Miss North alive?" Mitchell asks. "Last night, around 9. Marco rubs his temples. "We had a difficult conversation about her future with the company." Marco explains the situation with the plagiarism allegations, the problems with Jamie, and the company's decision to temporarily suspend Julia from working with social media. After their conversation, Julia stayed behind to close up the shop. Who else had access to the premises after closing time? Theoretically, only employees with keys. Marco lists 5 names, including Jamie Hawkins. But if the door was left open, or someone was hiding inside before closing. In a temporary command center set up in a neighboring room, Sarah Mitchell and her team are gathering information about Julia North's life. The picture that emerges is contradictory. A popular barista with thousands of followers, but involved in questionable operations and manipulations. Detective Morales from the financial department questioned her the day before her death, reports the junior detective. Something to do with Michael Donnelly, who was arrested for money laundering. "Contact Morales," Mitchell orders. "I need a full report on what he found out." A timeline of Julia's last days and a list of potential suspects are displayed on a large board. At the top are Jamie Hawkins, a colleague whom Julia allegedly framed, Christopher Grant, owner of a rival coffee shop, and Alex Rivera, a chef who had shown an obsessive interest in Julia. By 11 o'clock, Jamie Hawkins arrives for questioning. She looks shaken, her eyes swollen from crying. "Miss Hawkins," Mitchell begins, "I need to ask you a few questions about Julia North." Jamie sobs, pressing a crumpled napkin to her eyes. "I still can't believe it. It's so awful." "Where were you between midnight and 3 a.m. yesterday?" "At home." Jamie looks frightened. "Alone. I went to bed around 11. "Can anyone confirm that?" "I live alone, but I spoke to my neighbor when I got home around 10:30. Jamie explains the situation with the shortage and how it later turned out that the records had been altered by Julia to frame her. "I was angry, of course," Jamie admits. "We had a fight yesterday. But I would never." Next to be questioned is Christopher Grant. Unlike Jamie, he controls his emotions, but the paleness of his face betrays his tension. "Mr. Grant," Mitchell studies his face. "Witnesses claim that you had a conflict with Julia North last night. Christopher does not deny it. Yes, I stopped by around 10. We talked for 5 minutes, no more." "What was the conversation about?" "She posted false information about my coffee shop online." His voice trembles with anger. "Because of that, I lost customers. My business is ruined." "Sounds like a motive for murder," Mitchell remarks. "I didn't kill her. Yes, I was angry and I told her so. But after our conversation, I went straight home." Alex Rivera arrives voluntarily after hearing the news. He looks devastated, his eyes red. "I had to protect her," he repeats. "I knew she was in danger." Mitchell studies him. "Why did you decide that?" Alex talks about Julia's strange behavior in recent weeks, her nervousness, her meetings with Donnelly, the anonymous messages. "Were you following her?" "Not on purpose. I was just worried. She refused help, but I felt she was in danger." "Where were you last night?" "At the restaurant until 2. We had an event. The staff can confirm that. Then I went home." Mitchell is particularly interested in the information Detective Morales has about Julia's connection to Michael Donnelly. "She denied receiving any money," Morales explains. "But when we searched Donnelly's place, we found records of a $10,000 transfer, the first payment for her coffee shop." "Do you think the murder is related to this case?" "Possibly. Donnelly is in custody, but he has an extensive network of contacts. If Julia knew something compromising." Sarah Mitchell returns to the crime scene in the evening. when most of the forensic team has finished their work. She likes to examine the empty crime scene, allowing the atmosphere to speak to her. The killer must have entered through the main hall. There are no signs of forced entry on the service door, so either Julia let him in, or he had a key, or he hid until closing time. The nature of the wound indicates a strong emotional component. Such a brutal murder is usually committed in a state of passion or as an act of revenge. The note confirms a personal motive. Someone wanted not only to kill Julia, but also to punish her, to expose her true nature. The technical expert approaches Mitchell. "Detective, we found something in the victim's apron pocket." He hands him a plastic bag, a crumpled envelope with traces of blood. Inside are printouts, photographs, evidence of Julia's various schemes. "It looks like compromising material," Mitchell remarks. "Someone collected evidence of all the victim's shady dealings." "And there's something else," the technician points to the back of the photo. There, the same text as in the note. "Fake, liar, thief. Now everyone knows your true nature." Mitchell feels a chill run down her spine. This connects the envelope to the murder and provides a sample of the killer's handwriting. "Check for fingerprints," she orders, "and compare the handwriting with all the suspects." Returning to the command center, Mitchell reviews the camera footage. At 9:43 p.m., Christopher enters the coffee shop and leaves 6 minutes later. At 10:10 p.m., Julia locks the front door. The cameras do not record any visitors after that. However, at 11:59 p.m., something strange happens. The camera records a brief power outage. The screen goes dark for 43 seconds. When the image returns, nothing has changed, but Mitchell notices a subtle movement of the blinds, as if someone had just entered. A moment before the outage, a reflection can be seen on the glass, a blurred silhouette of a person approaching the entrance. The image is unclear, but someone clearly turned off the electricity to enter unnoticed. At 11:30 p.m., half an hour earlier, the cameras captured another detail, a passing car. The car slows down near the entrance. The lighting is insufficient to see the driver's face or the license plate, but the model of the car can be identified. Mitchell freezes the frame and sends the image for recognition. The result, a dark blue Ford Focus, last year's model. Such a car is registered in the name of one of the suspects. Sarah Mitchell experiences that special feeling familiar to every detective, when the scattered pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together into a single picture. Now she has key evidence linking the suspect to the crime scene at a critical time. It's the third day of the investigation. The police command center is buzzing with activity. Detective Sarah Mitchell stands in front of a board with photos and diagrams connected by red threads. In the center is a photo of a smiling Julia North from her Instagram account. The contrast between this image and what was found in the coffee shop is striking, even to seasoned police officers. The results of the examination of the dark blue Ford Focus confirmed Mitchell's suspicions. The car belongs to Jamie Hawkins. Microscopic traces of blood were found in the trunk, despite thorough cleaning. DNA analysis will take time, but Mitchell has no doubt that the blood belongs to Julia. The detective reviews the evidence collected. The note found on the victim's body and the note from the envelope were written by the same hand. The handwriting matches Jamie's samples. During a search of her apartment, drafts of these messages were found, carefully hidden under a floorboard. There was also a knife with traces of blood, wrapped in plastic. Jamie didn't risk throwing away the murder weapon, fearing it might be found. But Julia's murder turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg. The investigation revealed the dark side of the lives of everyone involved in this story. Alex Rivera, the chef whose obsession with Julia seemed like nothing more than obsessive love, had a criminal past. 10 years ago, he was arrested for stalking his ex-girlfriend in Boston. The case was hushed up, but his pattern of behavior remained. He really did follow Julia, secretly photographing her and gathering information. In his apartment, they found an entire wall dedicated to her, newspaper clippings, printouts of posts, a map of her movements around the city. An obsession bordering on madness, but not murder. Christopher Grant also had dark secrets. His coffee shop, Artisan Coffee, was indeed going bankrupt, but not only because of Julia's publications. Financial documents showed that he was using the business to launder money for a local criminal gang. Julia's exposé came at a particularly vulnerable moment when he was trying to get out of the scheme. The threat of public attention to his establishment could have led to the exposure of much more serious crimes. He had a strong motive to silence Julia. While in custody, Michael Donnelly revealed the true extent of his money laundering business to detectives in exchange for a reduced sentence. Julia was just one of many small business owners to whom he offered investments, money of criminal origin that was returned, laundered through legitimate businesses. She knew or guessed the true nature of these funds, but her ambition outweighed her caution. Donnelly confirmed that Julia had received $10,000 from him, the first installment of a planned $120,000. But the most striking revelation was about Julia herself. Computer analysis of her social media accounts revealed systematic manipulation. She didn't just borrow latte art designs from a Japanese barista. She bought followers, used bots to post comments, and spread false information about her competitors. Her social media empire was as fake as her relationships with those around her. A financial investigation revealed that the Donnelly money was not the first instance of questionable financing in her life. Julia had romantic relationships with several wealthy coffee shop customers, receiving gifts and loans from them that she never repaid. Her luxurious apartment in an expensive neighborhood was paid for by a married investment company executive, unbeknownst to his family. Mitchell realizes that Julia North was not just a vain barista with ambitions. She was a calculating manipulator who used everyone around her as a stepping stone to her goal. Jamie, Alex, Christopher, they were all pawns in her game. It's time to question the prime suspect. Jamie Hawkins sits in the interrogation room, pale and exhausted. The photographs of the evidence lie in front of her. She doesn't deny anything or protest. She just waits for the inevitable. When Mitchell enters, Jamie looks up. There is no fear in her eyes, only endless fatigue. "Tell me what happened that night," the detective asks without accusations or threats. Sometimes the most effective way to get a confession is to simply give the person a chance to speak. And Jamie tells her story. Her words transport us back to that night. Jamie didn't plan the murder. She came to talk, to try one last time to reach out to the Julia she once considered a friend. She cut the power not to sneak in unnoticed, but to disable the cameras for a few minutes. She didn't want anyone to see their conversation. She unlocked the door and found Julia in the utility room, looking through an envelope containing compromising material. "Have you been following me?" Julia looked up, her eyes full of anger and fear. "Are you blackmailing me?" Jamie admitted that she had been gathering information, not to blackmail her, but to protect herself from further manipulation. She just wanted Julia to realize the consequences of her actions and acknowledge how she had hurt those who trusted her. But Julia laughed in her face. "Did you really think we were friends? I used you. You were useful until you became a hindrance. No one will believe your accusations. I have thousands of followers, a reputation. What do you have?" Those words, spoken with cold contempt, broke something inside Jamie. 4 years of loyalty, friendship, support. It was all a lie. She saw the real Julia, without her mask, a calculating, heartless creature incapable of genuine feelings. There was a meat knife on the cutting board. Jamie grabbed it instinctively, not planning to use it. She just wanted to scare Julia, to silence her. "You ruined my life," Jamie whispered. "You betrayed me, set me up, used me." "And what are you going to do?" Julia sneered. "Kill me? You don't have the guts." The next few moments merged into a red fog of rage. Jamie only remembers a scream, her own or Julia's, she's not sure. She remembers the first blow, the resistance of flesh, the warm blood on her hands. She remembers continuing to strike, unable to stop, as if 4 years of pent-up resentment and pain had burst out in this act of uncontrolled violence. When the fog cleared, Julia was lying on the floor, her body torn apart, her eyes frozen in shock. Jamie, as if in a trance, took out the note she had prepared for another purpose. She wanted to leave it for Julia before leaving her life forever, and placed it inside the wound. A symbolic gesture. The truth had finally penetrated where the heart should be. Detective Mitchell listens to this confession without judgment. The crime is terrible, but her motives are deeply human. Betrayal, humiliation, shattered hopes, an emotional cauldron that was bound to explode at some point. Jamie Hawkins is arrested on suspicion of murder. Mitigating circumstances will be taken into account, but she is unlikely to escape a long prison sentence. News of the murder's discovery and the shocking details of Julia North's life spreads throughout Chicago. The story goes far beyond the local media, becoming the subject of national debate. The theme of fake lives on social media, manipulation, and their destructive consequences resonates with millions. The coffee shop on Michigan Avenue remains closed for a week, then reopens with new staff. Starbucks conducts an internal investigation and revises its hiring and employee monitoring policies. Marco Diaz gets a promotion and a transfer to another city. Too many painful memories are associated with this place. Alex Rivera undergoes mandatory psychological therapy and moves to Seattle, where he opens a small bistro. His obsession with Julia gradually fades, but does not disappear completely. Her photo still stands on his desk. Christopher Grant cooperates with the police in investigating money laundering schemes, receiving immunity from prosecution. His coffee shop, Artisan Coffee, closes, but a year later, he opens a new establishment in another neighborhood, clean, legal, with an emphasis on ethically grown beans. Julia's Instagram becomes a digital memorial. Her last post, a photo of a perfect cappuccino with an elegant pattern on the foam, has thousands of comments. People discuss the duality of personality, the fine line between ambition and obsession, and the temptation of a fake life in the age of social media. In her prison cell, Jamie Hawkins receives letters of support from strangers across the country. Many see their own fears and traumas reflected in her story. She responds to every letter, finding in this communication a healing she never received from her fake friendship with Julia. Coffee continues to be served every day on Michigan Avenue. Baristas create patterns on the milk foam. Customers take selfies for Instagram. Life goes on. But something has subtly changed in the atmosphere. A slight bitterness in the realization that behind the perfect facade may lie a bitter, cruel reality.